He is Jay Croucher. Jay, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Love to get your full top 10 of your favourite Australians. I wonder where me and Jock Landale slot in with Hugh Jackman and Kylie Minogue. Hopefully higher than Ben Simmons.
Jason Day. I love it.
But Chris Pongrass.
Chris Pongrass, who is our buddy, who is the president and CEO of the Sydney Kings now. Also, Minwoo Lee, let him cook.
Sure.
He's Australian, right?
Steve Irwin also.
Steve Irwin, he's passed away.
So?
His son's relevant, though, right?
Bro.
I think so. Okay. All right. Where is your Landau jersey in the background?
It's fantasy football season. I got to represent Cam Akers, one of the 500 best running backs in the NFL. Not actually sure he's in the league right now, Cam Akers, but he won me some money last year on the Vikings, so his jersey hangs up behind me. But yeah, I'll get a Landale jersey at some point if he has a good year this year, Chris.
Plays for the Saints.
He plays for the Saints.
Is a Saint.
Cam Akers is
currently a Saint.
He's a Saint.
For now. Could be playing for anyone.
I'm glad we could inform my expert or the guy that the jersey behind him is playing now. All right, Jay, this is going to be the easiest interview you've ever done because you guys are so in the weeds every day on the fantasy football stuff. Let's start with beginning of drafts. Where do you feel like consensus ends? Is there a consensus top 5? Is there a consensus top 6? At what point are you seeing people fray?
Yeah, so I think now there's kind of forming to be a consensus top 2, which is Jamar Chase and Bijan Robinson. Bijan has changed his pronunciation from Bijan to Bijan, which is a new running back thing after Devin A-Chain became Devin A-Chan as well. So not sure who's going to be next in this line, but I think those are the top two guys. I think that Saquon Barkley, obviously, he is in that discussion as well, but I think the fact that he had 482 touches last season total, the fact that he is on a little bit the other side of the aging curve, and the Eagles unlikely to go 14-3 again. So a little bit worried about Saquon. He gets vultured at the goal line by Jalen Hurts with the tush push, doesn't get a lot of pass game usage. So I think the top 2 guys, I think those are pretty etched in. And then after that, it's Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon. I prefer to be more at the back end of that because I think that guys like Christian McCaffrey, I think he is every bit as likely to have the season that Saquon might this year. So if you're not in the top 2, I'd rather be at the end of the first round.
So really, even by pick 3, you are seeing all manner of different people getting selected with the 3rd pick.
Yeah, I think so, because it just depends on what your philosophy is. Like, do you want generally wide receivers are safer because they're just less injury prone than running backs, but less attrition at the position. So CeeDee Lamb right now is going 3 in a lot of drafts. In other drafts, though, you get Saquon or Justin Jefferson. Jahmyr Gibbs is surging up boards as well. So I think it is really eye of the beholder. I think Jamar Chase should be the number 1 player in fantasy. I think he's just got such a high floor with Joe Burrow. That defense might be even worse this year. So they're going to be in so many shootouts. I think he is the number 1 guy. And then I think Bijan is 2. But then after that, then there's a lot of uncertainty.
Who is the player that has changed the most in the last month, right? Because there's some groups that do their drafts like super early. And then there are others that obviously are going to be doing it within this last week or even possibly next week leading up to the season to try to get all the injury information, et cetera, beforehand. But there's always guys that have burst onto the scene. They become the hot name that is getting taken a lot higher than maybe they would have even a few weeks ago. Is there a guy like that? And typically it's rookies, right?
Yeah, so I'll give you 2 rookies who both fit that mold, whose average draft position has surged 40-plus positions in preseason. So one is Travion Henderson, running back for the Patriots, who's had an awesome preseason. His first touch in the NFL, albeit preseason, he runs a kickoff back for a touchdown. He is extremely explosive, and the guy he's competing for time with is Ramondre Stevenson, who is not exactly peak 2012 Adrian Peterson in terms of a guy you need to dislodge from a backfield. So Travion Henderson is surging up boards. I think that might have gone a little bit too far because I don't think he's going to get workhorse usage. He didn't get that at Ohio State. He's dealt with injuries before. I think he's going to be the lightning to Ramondre's kind of adjacent thunder. I don't really want to say that Ramondre Stevenson has the thunder, but in theory, that is what he has. So I think that Travion is going to balance that out. And I think where he is going now might have gone a little bit too far. The guy I'm higher on and who has surged a ton is Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver in Tampa Bay, who they spent a first-round pick on, despite having maybe the deepest wide receiver room in the sport already. Chris Godwin, seems like we're not going to see him for the first month of the season, maybe even longer than that. And when he comes back, then he's going to need to ramp up. He's coming off a really bad broken ankle that's required a follow-up surgery. So it's Egbuka and Mike Evans. And Mike Evans is amazing. He's Mike Evans, but he's on the other side of 30. And I think that Egbuka, who comes in as a super pro-ready player, Baker Mayfield's taken huge steps in this offense the past 2 years. I think that Emeka Egbuka, he is a guy who could be, we don't think about the Bucs like this because Baker's the quarterback and not Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or whatever, but the Bucs were a top 5 offense last year, and I think they got better. So there are worlds where Emeka Egbuka is the number 1 pass catcher on a top 3, top 4 offense in football. So huge upside for Egbuka.
Let me ask you about a couple of the other rookies. Maybe they haven't surged as much because people were already high on them, but the rookie running backs especially, both Genty and Omarion Hampton, who's at the Chargers.
Yeah, so Ashton Genty, he's going, basically within the top 10 picks now. So I don't think there's much value on him in drafts. At the same time, he's got a super high floor, generational running back in the same vein as, Saquon Barkley, Adrian Peterson, Bijan Robinson coming out. His competition for touches is Raheem Mostert and Zamir White. That's not a lot of competition. He's going to get a ton of work. Chip Kelly as well runs a really fast-paced offense. So, it's like a Memphis Grizzlies thing. You play at the fastest pace. There's just the most stats available there. So he is going to get a lot of touches, and he's very high floor. Hampton is more interesting to me, though, because, he is a guy who had workhorse usage in college. He can absorb that. Now, the Chargers say that, there's going to be a timeshare with Najee Harris. It's like, one, is there actually going to be a timeshare with Najee Harris? Because I think Omarion Hampton's a lot better than him. And then 2, when's Najee Harris actually going to play football? Because he had this fireworks accident that took out, I don't know if it took out, but it hurt his eye, and he's still coming back from it. So I think that Hampton, there are worlds where, he just comes in and is getting 75% of the carries as an absolute monster from day one. So relative to where they're going in drafts at the moment, Hampton is the guy that I'm drafting a fair bit more, because you can't trust coaches a lot of the time, Chris, with what they say in preseason. And that's why Hampton's value is a bit suppressed, the idea that it's going to be a timeshare. I remember back in 2022, Frank Reich, after Jonathan Taylor had his epic 2021 season where he's the best running back in football, Frank Reich was like, yeah, Nyheim Hines is going to be a big part of this offense this year. He's going to get a lot more work with JT. And then week 1 against the Texans, Jonathan Taylor has 30 carries. In the end, you go with your best guy. And I think that Omarion Hampton is that for the Chargers.
Okay, let's get to, so you mentioned Travion Henderson and obviously Egbuka, and these are guys that between camp and the preseason obviously have helped their case a lot and have moved up a lot in drafts. Is there anybody whose stock has gone precipitously down because of the preseason?
Yeah, so a lot of stuff is going to be injury related. Guys like Isaiah Likely getting banged up. A lot of every Packers wide receiver is hurt at the moment, outside of Matthew Golden, it feels like. So Jaden Reed's stock has gone down. Guys like Dontavian Wicks in that room as well. Chris Godwin, who we mentioned, just with his lack of clarity around a return, his stock is falling too. All the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs, just because we don't know who the running back is. We thought it was going to be Jaylen Warren against Caleb Johnson for the number 1 role, and then the Steelers come out and say, oh, we really like Kenneth Gainwell for some reason. So now he's in the mix. So all of those guys' values getting a little bit depressed. One guy whose, I think, stock has fallen a little bit, not so much because of the preseason, but just with kind of people thinking about this a little bit more, is Tyreek Hill, who I think that is very high variance, and he's got a lot of upside, obviously. But I think as people have dug into the data a bit more out of last year and just seeing how much his next-gen stats speed metrics really fell off a cliff last year. Yeah, he can still get to the same top speed, but he's not hitting those 20-mile-per-hour speeds nearly as much as he did in previous years. And I get that he ran the 100-meter sprint, a couple months ago in a rapid time, but it's like that's not what he should be judged on. It's like how often are you getting to those elite speeds that ripped up the league in 2023, and last year he wasn't getting there. And on the other side of 30, just weird stuff going on with the Dolphins, weird vibes around that team. So Tyreek Hill is one guy that I'm very much staying away from.
Is there any of those? All right, so we talked about the injured guys. Inevitably, there's going to be somebody that drafts one of these guys and he's on the bench and you get to put him in your IR role or whatever, and then after a month he's going to come in and he's going to help somebody win a league. Is there anybody that you are looking at that's going in and is an injury concern, but you're like, man, if he's around late, I certainly will take a flyer on him?
Yeah, the guy for me, Chris, would be Brandon Ayuk, who Kyle Shanahan came out and said that probably week 6 is around the time that Ayuk is going to come back. And if you look at the Niners situation, Christian McCaffrey's there in the backfield, obviously. But in terms of wide receivers, it's Juwan Jennings, who's going through a contract disagreement at the moment and has a calf problem that may be a contract problem, not entirely sure, very unclear when he is going to be back. Ricky Pearsall is the number 1 wide receiver in this offense. Ricky Pearsall barely played last year and is being counted on to do a ton. George Kittle's going to be a part of the offense
and
too.
And he got shot, Jay.
And he got shot, yeah, which is,
that
a thing.
also happened.
That happened too, which, threw off his rookie season. Looked great in the last couple of weeks, but, it was a very small sample. So I think that Brandon Ayuk, we forget that 2 years ago, the Niners made the Super Bowl and he was their number 1 wide receiver. He's still pretty young. I think people are cool on Ayuk because he wasn't that good last year before he got hurt, but he had the contract situation last year, which always screws up guys at the start of the season when they hold out during camp. So I think that Ayuk, there's a chance that he comes back and is the number 1 wide receiver on a team that, could win 11, 12 games and flirt with being, a top 2-3 offense in football. So Ayuk is a guy I like targeting at the end of drafts, particularly if your draft has gone really well and you think that you're gearing up for the playoffs. Brandon Ayuk is a guy who should be fully ramped up by the last month of the season.
And is he going way late?
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk is going, comfortably. He's going outside the top 100 picks. So you can get Brandon Ayuk pretty late in drafts at this point.
And then it might end up helping you. That's a very good one, right? You could look up, and now if you've got him and he's the number 1 receiver for the 49ers, you've got the number 1 receiver so late in your draft, and he's just like a benefit at the end. And he really might help people win their drafts, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. What is the position I need to be targeting earlier than I normally would because it falls off so badly?
Yeah, so I think running back this year, once you get out of the top 80 picks, then you're looking at guys like Ramondre Stevenson and Jalen Warren and Travis Etienne, and all these guys just make me feel a little bit queasy. And I think there's a lot of running backs at the top of the draft, well, not just at the top, because there's the obvious guys like Bijan Robinson, Saquon, Jahmyr Gibbs, McCaffrey, but those running backs who are in the 8 to 11 range I really like. So, Jonathan Taylor is going around pick 20. Jonathan Taylor, I think we forget that 2021, he had one of the greatest running back seasons of all time. And if you actually look at JT in his past 17 games when he's actually been healthy, it's like almost 1,800 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns. The guy is still a monster when he's healthy. He's just been dealing with these niggling injuries. There's no degenerative knee. It's just high ankle sprain, broken thumb, just little things that keep taking him off the field. And his quarterback situation has been terrible the past couple of years. And, as uninspiring as Daniel Jones may be, still think he's going to run a professional NFL offense. And if he's really bad, then Anthony Richardson comes in and you've got some upside there still. So I think Jonathan Taylor is a guy who people have forgotten about a little bit. And he's someone who I'd certainly be happy taking as my first running back, going around that pick 20. Another couple of guys in that range too, Bucky Irving for the Bucks, who Again, I think this is going to be a super explosive offense, playing in not a very good division in the NFC South, soft schedule after the first month of the season. He was one of the most efficient running backs in football last year when they gave him the rock in the second half of the season as they got less enamored of Rashad White. So Bucky Irving, I think, is a guy who can be 5 yards per carry, extremely efficient. And then Chase Brown, who's going almost around pick 30. Like, Chase Brown has no real competition in the Bengals backfield. And he's out there. He plays almost 100% of the snaps. And if you're just out there 100% of the time almost with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and your defense is giving up 45 points a game, like, you're just going to get stats. You're just going to compile stats. So Chase Brown is another guy that I would look for around. He's going pick 27, 28, that kind of range. Happy with Chase Brown, 8, 9 picks before that.
But it then just falls off. Like, once you get down past like you were saying, the first several rounds, you're just not going to find somebody that is going to get you a bunch of carries and stats.
It's just, there's a lot of question marks after that. So the guys after Chase Brown, it's like, James Cook in Buffalo, who's fine, he's good. Yeah. He also had, I think, 16 rushing touchdowns last year, and his over-under this year is like 8.5. Like, he's just not going to get as many touchdowns as he did last year. Then it's, Alvin Kamara playing for a team that might win 5 games. Chuba Hubbard in Carolina. Breece Hall, who may not even end up being the guy who gets the most carries in his offense because the Jets seem to really love Braylon Allen. So, there's still guys that you can find in, I like James Conner on Arizona, who's going pick 53, just a perennially underrated guy, very unsexy name, James Conner, but just very productive year in, year out. But I think once you get past Chase Brown, who's going running back 11, I do think there is a drop-off where there's just question marks around a lot of these guys. Like, Ken Walker is the guy going after James Cook. He's got all the talent in the world. He's also just got all the injury statuses in the world, where he's just constantly on the injury report. He's dealing with a foot issue now. I don't know if he's going to play week 1. So a lot of question marks after Chase Brown.
Those guys are the worst, too. We used to always call it the Brian Westbrook, right? That you would have to look every Sunday morning and whether or not you were going to get to put the guy in your lineup or not. And if you did, he was really good. But more often than not, then you had to start like Marlon Mack or whoever. Right? Whoever.
Shout out to Marlon Mack.
Yeah, shout out Marlon Mack. All right. Who is the guy that Jay Croucher is way higher on than his peers?
Okay, so the one guy who I'll stake my allegedly good name on is Drake London, who is going right now outside the top 20 picks in drafts. And I think Drake London, I don't think there is that big of a gap, if any, between Drake London and the CD Lambs and Amon-Ra St. Browns and Puka Nakuas of the world. I think Drake London is just an absolute monster, and the world doesn't know it entirely because his quarterbacks have been like, Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota and Kirk Cousins with half an arm. But Drake London last year, he was the 3rd most targeted wide receiver in football. And when Michael Penix got in those last 3 games, it was 13 targets per game to Drake London. Drake London, he hasn't had a deep ball thrower, really, his whole career. Now he gets Michael Penix, who, has some accuracy issues. But the one thing Michael Penix does is he lets it go down the field. And I think that's going to really activate Drake London, who was great last year, but didn't have a single reception of 40 yards or more because Kirk Cousins couldn't throw the ball 40 yards or more, it felt like. So I think Drake London, ton of upside. We're just activating his deep game. His target competition is like Darnell Mooney and the ghost of Kyle Pitts. Right. So I think that he's going to get a ton of targets. He's a chance to get the most targets in the NFL. He's got a really high floor too because Zach Robinson, his offensive coordinator, uses him in the slot like 40% of the time. And when you're using the slot, just means easier receptions, shorter stuff to go with the deeper high variance stuff. It's like basically like the Cooper Kupp role from 2021 when Cooper Kupp was at his peak. Drake London gets to play that role in this offense. So I think Drake London's going to be an absolute monster this year. He's young, no injury history, not concerned there. So yeah, I think he's going to be a beast.
The Kyle Pitts thing is hilarious. Is there anybody, especially in your line of work, right, dealing with fantasy all the time, he is the subject of every fantasy football meme that you see, right? It's always like some dumbass like going like, me drafting Drake London again, or it'll be like some ghoul like, or, saying draft me, and it's like me falling for Kyle Pitts again. It's every year. Every year.
Yeah,
it's Kyle
he's like
Pitts.
He's kind of become the Ben Simmons of the NFL,
has.
where it's like, yeah, like you can see it. Like Ben Simmons, a good defender. He's good in the open floor. So, well, he can't shoot still, and 8 years in or whatever. Kyle Pitts is like, he's a wide receiver who plays at tight end, and he's not really either position, and he doesn't really block. And I mean, he's probably going to be okay, but I think the world, the universe is where Kyle Pitts lives up to being a top 5 draft pick are well gone at this point. So yeah, he'll slot in. He won't be, Ben Simmons looking for a contract in the middle of August still. But yeah, I'm not expecting huge things from Kyle Pitts.
So I like the Drake London one. How about on the flip side? Who is the guy that you are way lower on than your peers?
Yeah, so I'll give you one, and I don't think he's going to be bad, but in terms of where he is going and not really wanting a piece of him at this price, Josh Jacobs is going around pick 20. He's going, ahead of guys. Like he's going one spot ahead of my man Drake London. He's going ahead of Bucky Irving and Chase Brown. And look, I think Josh Jacobs is a really good player. I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to fail massively, but I think you can find better values than him. And the reason why is that the Packers ran the ball last year an ungodly amount. They leaned heavily into the run, and I don't think that's what Matt LaFleur wants to do. I think he only did that last year because Jordan Love was injured basically the entire season. Jordan Love does his MCL in week 1 against the Eagles, comes back, does his groin, then does his elbow later. Like he was just banged up the whole year, couldn't really move, and I think that they just had to lean into the run because of that. Jacobs was fully healthy the whole season, and so I think at his current draft position, it's kind of baking in a little too much of what he did last season. And look, if he's healthy, he's going to be good, but I don't think he has the upside of guys going around him. Like he's basically going pretty much the same pick as Jonathan Taylor, and I think there are worlds where Jonathan Taylor could be, a top 2, top 3 running back in the sport this year. I don't quite see the same usage for Josh Jacobs because I think that they're just going to throw the ball a lot more this year, the Packers, than they did last year, kind of like they did in 2023, where they leaned a lot more into the pass because Jordan Love was healthy.
Are there any of the quarterbacks that are like the young ones, either the second-year guys, obviously Daniels was sensational last year, but whether it's Caleb or Drake May or Bo Nix or you mentioned Penix earlier, any of those guys and or the rookies that you really like a young quarterback that you would feel comfortable with having as your starter or at worst your backup?
Yeah, so I think probably it's a strange thing to say because he didn't have the draft position that reflected this at all. But I think the safest guy out of all of those young guys, if we're excluding Jaden Daniels, who I think is in his own tier at this point, is actually Bo Nix. And the reason why is because Bo Nix uses his legs. And in fantasy, just the rushing aspect of a quarterback is so valuable. He plays behind a top 5 offensive line in football. He's got Sean Payton as his play caller. He has Cortland Sutton, who is still probably the most underrated wide receiver in football. His running back room gets upgraded with RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins instead of last year, depending on Javonte Williams and Audric Estime and these random guys in the offense. So I think Bo Nix is very high floor. With Cam Ward, who I think is going to be good. I think Cam Ward's going to be great. I do think that just the past 2 years, the performances that CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels had have probably conditioned us a bit too much to think that rookies are just going to come in and be MVP candidates straight away. Like, that's not normal. It doesn't usually happen like that. You normally see more seasons like Drake May last year, who was fine and had flashes, but had a lot of mistakes as well. And so Cam Ward, who might have the worst wide receiver room in the sport, I don't think he's going to have the season that Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud had in their rookie years. The most interesting guy to me and the most kind of high variance of these young guys is JJ McCarthy, just because not sure effectively a rookie quarterback has ever come into a better situation than being in Kevin O'Connell, coach of the year in his offense with Justin Jefferson, top 2-3 wide receiver in the sport, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, rumors they're going to trade for Adam Thielen, really good offensive line with Christian Darrisaw coming back. So JJ, I think if he's good, it's going to reflect because he's in an amazing context. I just think they might run the ball a bit more this year than they did last year. Last year, the only two teams that threw the ball more relative to expectation were the Bengals and the Chiefs than the Vikings. The Vikings were third. Like the top two teams, they had Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. And then Sam Darnold in Kevin O'Connell's offense was third. I don't think that's going to be the case this year because they invested in Jordan Mason. They got Aaron Jones there. JJ first season, so I think they're going to be pretty run heavy, but JJ is certainly a guy with a lot of upside.
One of the big stories this morning, or I guess the big story out of the NFL, was this trade that went down between the Commanders and the 49ers, Brian Robinson Jr. ending up in San Francisco. How do you take that? And what does it mean regarding, does it have any effect fantasy-wise on the players on either of those teams?
Yeah, so I think I've got a few texts, people just freaking out about what this signals for Christian McCaffrey. To me, it signals absolutely nothing for Christian McCaffrey. Like, Christian McCaffrey's still the guy. He's going to get all the work that he can handle. I think this is more just about fortifying the depth at running back and the fact that, if McCaffrey, even if they go into the season hoping that he's going to be fully fit, expecting that he's going to be fully fit, all the reports out of camp have been that he looks great and he looks like he did in 2023. The reality is he's 29 years old and he's coming off a series of injuries. McCaffrey's had 7 seasons in the NFL. 3 of them have basically been write-offs due to injury. And I think this move is just the Niners just acknowledging that reality, that we have to plan for the chance, whether it's 15%, whether it's 30%, that Christian McCaffrey goes down. And we don't feel comfortable with Isaac Guerrero or Jordan James, a rookie 5th rounder, becoming our lead running back when we have aspirations to make the Super Bowl if McCaffrey goes down. So I think that just speaks to that. Also, Kyle Shanahan, no man in the NFL loves running backs more than Kyle Shanahan. He always wants to get his hands on more running backs. And so I think that this is just them fortifying their depth. I think that McCaffrey's value shouldn't change at all. I think Brian Robinson's going to be like Elijah Mitchell was in this offense for a couple of years. So no worries with McCaffrey. In terms of Washington, they've got a strange running back room now where it's JCM, it's Chris Rodriguez, it's Austin Eckler. The way I think of this backfield, it's kind of like the Ravens 2 years ago when Lamar won MVP, and it's super efficient, and these guys are all running for 5 yards per carry, but it's Gus Edwards and Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell, and you can't really depend on a single one of them. It's just the collective is really good because Jaden Daniels is such a cheat code for your running backs because he drags men out of the box and just produces such a high efficient offense overall. But so I don't think any of those guys are super appealing in fantasy at the moment, and I'm not worried about Christian McCaffrey.
All right, Roser, I know you've been stewing over there. What you got? Okay, he's a 49er guy.
I'm a Niners fan.
I'm sure he loved the Ayuk stuff, and now he was nodding his head along on the McCaffrey thing. He loves getting Brian Robinson there.
One thing I do think, I also think because of the receiver thing you brought up, that maybe the Robinson thing is also McCaffrey can play wide receiver too. And they signed a tight end from the Jaguars this offseason who is he is there to block, which leads me to believe you may see more from Kittle in the passing game.
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing about McCaffrey is that the thing that makes him so special, it's not just he can run for 1,500 yards and he's one of the best runners in the league. It's that he is the most dynamic receiving threat at running back in the NFL. The way that he just ruins linebackers. Like the game that he played against the Eagles 2 years ago, where the Niners went into Philly and just eviscerated them to get control of the 1 seed, like he literally sent a couple of Eagles linebackers out of the league. Like they just got cut because it's like you can't deal with Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. So that is what makes him so special. And yeah, and he's going to have to get used because early on, before Ayuk comes back, it's Pearsall and it's Kittle, and we'll see about Jawan Jennings.
Yeah,
but
I mean, honestly,
he's going to get a lot of work.
It's way too much 49ers for me. I mean, he's gonna get hurt. They're gonna suck. So let's talk about America's team and about how amazing George Pickens is going to be.
How many running backs on the 49ers roster would start for the Cowboys?
Come on, stop.
At running back?
We're talking about the GOAT, George Pickens, who has also had to play for horrible quarterbacks and just wasting away in Pittsburgh. Now, I mean, on the other side of CD Lamb, Croucher, this has got to be like, I mean, are we talking like 86 Rice, or are we talking like 2000 Moss? Like, where are we thinking in terms of what kind of season Pickens can have? Because I mean, I have thought maybe like Hall of Fame-esque.
Yeah, wow, incredible build-up for a team that's got a win total of 7.5. It's the over-under for the Cowboys. Yeah. No, look, I think Pickens is going to be really good.
And we're about to lose our best player because he's pissed off on Instagram.
Damn.
Yeah, unbelievable saga.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Jerry doing a great job there, alienating the best defensive player in the sport for seemingly no reason whatsoever. Look, I think that the Parsons situation...
Did you see his Instagram story, by the way? It's something like, when I hit this red button, everybody dies or something. I was like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted to wake up
Make
to
him
this
a
morning.
Raven.
Go ahead.
Someone's going to have to try sack Jalen Hurts in like 2 weeks. Like, she's going to get this resolved. Also, the thing is, like, they play the first game of the season. Like, you don't even have until the Sunday. Like, you're playing the Thursday. So, I don't know. It doesn't feel like Parsons is going to be out there for that one, but we'll see. But I think that the Parsons stuff, it kind of ties into why I think that Pickens and Lamb and even Jake Ferguson, like, relative to expectations, I think these guys are all going to have monster seasons, because I don't think the defense is going to be able to stop anyone. Where you still don't have anyone, you don't have any big humans on the inside of the defensive line, Chris, to stop the run, which is a huge issue. The cornerbacks appear broken. If Parsons isn't out there, this defense is in big trouble. And so I think that the Cowboys, I just think every week their games are going to be a fantasy fiesta where it's just going to be a lot of points. I think that Dak will have a little bit worried about Dak with just the amount of injuries that he's had and his mobility not being the same. But do think the offensive line will be better than last year. I think the scheme will be a bit more creative. Just having CD Lamb and George Pickens and Dak Prescott, I don't think your offense can really fail, even if the running back room is seeming like it's trying to make the offense fail. But I think that outside of Joe Burrow, I think Dak Prescott is the most likely player to lead the NFL in passing yards, because I think he's going to just be in a ton of shootouts, and those yards are going to go to CD Lamb and George Pickens. So, yeah, I think those guys will have big seasons.
You know what? My expectations aren't crazy high. At least I know for certain I'm not watching Cooper Rush anymore.
He's on my team now.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to watch friggin' Joe Milton, who's awful. I mean, this guy, he is pathetic.
He's got a bazooka.
Yeah, Bazooka Joe, right?
Yeah. Can't name it anymore.
All right, how many leagues are you in this year?
I got seven. Which is, a bit to keep a track of, but not crazy. Like Matthew Berry, who I work with, he has a hard time saying no. So he's in like 25 leagues. It's ridiculous. I know it can't be fun at that point. It's too many. But yeah, I think I've got 7 going.
All right, and you give us the Australian scouting report on our new center. Zach Edey's out.
Yeah.
So we're going to be starting Jock Landale when the season starts.
Yeah.
What did you just? Wait, what was that?
Can you play Jaron at the 5? I think.
Oh my God!
Look, I think Jock. The thing is, like a team like Jock Landale enough, pretty recently, I think 2 years ago, to give him a 4-year, $32 million contract in the Houston Rockets, and it didn't work out great for Jock in Houston. But at the same time, I think he's going to be very competent. The main thing with Jock is that he'll execute the scheme, he'll be in the right place, he'll do all the little things. So yeah, I think Jock Landale, he'll be fine. Little stopgap for you.
Can he be a poor man Steve-O? Right? We had Steven Adams here years ago. Can he just be the poor man Steve-O? Set the screen.
Timu Adams.
All you have to do is set the screen for John Morant, bro, and then get us some offensive rebounds.
The problem with calling anyone a poor man Steve-O is that it implies that anyone has the same line of genetics as Steven Adams, and I'm not sure anyone does. I think he's just his own species on planet Earth. But yeah, he can. I think he's a professional NBA center who'll set screens. He'll do everything that's asked of him.
Just wouldn't expect. Why are you not overrating Jock Landale for us? I figured I'm going to bring on an Australian.
Keep it 100.
And he's going to overrate Jock Landale for us to get us all excited about it. And instead, you did the complete opposite. This is a disaster.
The guy's season, what's he topped out as? Jock Landale, career high was like 6 points per game. It's not like he's an absolute world crusher. But no, I like Jock. He's St. Mary's boy as well, just like the great Matthew Dellavedova.
Yeah. So, I guess you're all in. You're a Dyson Daniels guy now.
I like Dyson Daniels. He's got the belt.
He's got the belt. He's got the Australian belt right now.
The Australian belt. It's not great at the moment. The belt options. It wasn't that long ago that we had like peak Joe Ingles, Paddy Mills launching threes in Game 5 of the finals for the Spurs against the Heat. Now it's like Ben Simmons playing backup center for the Clippers. It's really just the Dyson Daniels show.
You've got the starting center for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, there you go.
No, we love Jock. No. Hoping for success for the Grizzlies. And I think I actually like the over, Chris, on the Grizzlies at 40.5. I think if Ja plays 67 games, I think you go over that number.
And I bet you're a Ty Jerome guy.
Yeah, I like him in the regular season. I don't like him if he has to play the Pacers in the playoffs.
Oh, man.
I have to face Tyrese Halliburton. But no, regular season, Ty Jerome was amazing last year. He put like his efficiency, everything was off the charts. I think Ty Jerome he'll be really good.
He was miscast in the playoffs. And for being fair, right? He was no. When Garland went out, he was wildly miscast. He is a 20 to 28 minute guy. He's not supposed to be your 35-minute guy, right? We even saw it with TJ when it came down, right? Second half of Game 7, TJ, that when you're having to play against the starters, and that's your expectation, it's like, we're going to see it this year. You watch with that kid there. I just read an article this morning saying they're going to start Peyton Pritchard in Boston.
Yeah.
He's in a world of shit. He's going up against everybody's starters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It gets harder. And also, like Ty Jerome, he was thrust into it being like, all right, you got to guard Tyrese Halliburton,
right,
who's one of the 6 or 7 best offensive players in the NBA. And then, you've also got to be like the lead playmaker for a team that is the favorite to win the Eastern Conference. So, yeah, he was a little overcast. Also, like, he's never been in that situation before. Ty Jerome he's unsighted in the league until last year, basically. Right. So I think that, yeah, he'll be a big help in winning regular season games for the Grizzlies for sure.
We also drafted Kobe in the first round. So
Cedric Howard. We drafted the next Michael Jordan.
Kobe Jordan.
The next Michael Jordan's playing for the Grizzlies. So you better get on
Kobe
that.
What? You take Kobe White? No, I like that.
Give us one NBA hot take before you get out of here.
Okay, one NBA.
Yeah. You said you like the Grizzlies over, so you obviously have an awareness of that. So either a team that's going to be better or worse, or you think a player or something that has taken place in the NBA that you've been sitting on.
Yeah. So one thing I think with the NBA this season, with the Western Conference, so right now the Thunder are the clear favorite, which I think is totally correct, and then you have Denver and the Rockets and the Wolves and the Clippers. And then the Lakers are like the 6th favorite to win the West. And I think the Lakers are actually the 2nd most likely team to win the West. And the reason why is I think that OKC are so good that the one thing that I feel best about in terms of a team taking them down is the upside for Luka Doncic to just be the best player in the sport, which I think is in the range of outcomes for Luka. And like he's lost all his weight in the Men's Health magazine and all that. I think there is enough around Luka that if he wants to be the best player in the sport, and realistically, I think there are 3 guys who have a chance to be that this year in Shea, Jokic, and Luka. And like some chance for Giannis and maybe Wemby, but I think those are the big 3. And I think that if Luka hits his ceiling outcomes, like you've got, like Austin Reeves was playing at like Jamal Murray level towards the end of the season. LeBron was still playing at an all-NBA level. Like I think the guys like Marcus Smart and DeAndre Ayton are going to come in and be super motivated and be better than they were last year. Like the Lakers, their win total's 48.5. Like they went over that last year. Like I think they're better this year with a full year of Luka. So I think they go over that. I think they've got a lot of upside. I think ultimately OKC
they were starting Cam
win.
Reddish last year, for God's sake.
They were playing their starters the entire second half for Game 4 against the Wolves. They didn't use a bench player because JJ was terrified of putting Gabe Vincent and Jared Vanderbilt out there for 1 second. And now this year, I think that just having an off season, having Luka more in shape and not coming off the calf injury, I think that the Lakers, look, I don't think they're going to win the West, but I feel that they have, just as much, if not more upside than teams like Houston, where Houston's best player, or the guy they're going to depend most on in the playoffs, is like 37-year-old Kevin Durant. Is 37-year-old Kevin Durant going to take down the Oklahoma City Thunder? I don't see it there. And with Denver, yeah, I get that Denver got better and you can't write off Jokic and all of that, but like I saw that series and OKC they won. Yes, it went 7, but they lost the close games in that. I think that was more of a 4-2 series that went 7. And I think the big thing with OKC that people underrate, they didn't add Cam Johnson, they didn't add free agent additions. Guess what? Like Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Kaysen Wallace, all these guys getting a year older, that is like adding a player. These guys are all going to get better. They're going to grow into their bodies. They're going to have more experience. And they'll be better for that finals run. So I think that they're going to be an absolute juggernaut. And the way that team goes down is if they come up against the player who is the best player in the world. And I think that Luka has that type of ceiling.
There it is. Jay Croucher, you're the best, buddy. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Appreciate it, fellas, anytime.